Every society on Earth has leaders. Presidents, kings, CEOs, chiefs, generals. Every civilization that has ever existed has had some version of the same structure. A small group of people at the top making decisions for everyone else. It feels inevitable, natural, like hierarchy is simply what humans do. But here's what the archaeological and anthropological record actually shows. For the first 290,000 years of human existence, the vast majority of our entire time on Earth, humans had no leaders. Not weak leaders, not informal leaders, no leaders at all. And the mechanism they used to keep it that way is one of the most fascinating things our species has ever done. Let's start with what researchers actually found when they studied the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups on Earth. Anthropologist Christopher Baim spent decades studying dozens of these societies across Africa, South America, and Australia. Groups with no contact with each other, separated by oceans and thousands of miles. And he found the same pattern everywhere. Every single one of them had a system, active, deliberate, and ruthlessly enforced, for preventing any one person from accumulating power over others. Baim called it the reverse dominance hierarchy. In a normal primate group, the strongest individual dominates the rest. Chimpanzees, gorillas, baboons. The biggest, most aggressive male climbs to the top and everyone else falls in line. That's the default primate social structure. Ancient humans flipped it entirely. Instead of the group submitting to the strongest individual, the group combined against anyone who tried to dominate. The many controlled the one, not occasionally, systematically, as a core social function. Here's how it worked in practice. If someone in the group started acting like they were more important than others, taking more food, making decisions without consensus, demanding special treatment, the group responded in stages. First, they were mocked, openly and publicly. Hunter-gatherer groups are documented to have a specific kind of humor, cutting, precise, and aimed directly at anyone showing signs of arrogance. Anthropologists call it cutting down the tall poppy. You killed a large animal? Someone will immediately make a joke at your expense. You're getting too proud of yourself? The whole group laughs at you until you aren't anymore. If mockery didn't work, the group moved to disobedience. They simply ignored the person, refused to follow their suggestions, walked away when they spoke. If that didn't work, ostracism, exclusion from the group. In an environment where survival depended entirely on collective cooperation, being cut out of the group was essentially a death sentence. And historical records from multiple societies document a final step that researchers rarely talk about. If someone was so dangerous, so consistently domineering that all other methods had failed, the group killed them, collectively, with shared responsibility so no single person bore the burden of the act. This wasn't violence born of chaos, it was a deliberate social mechanism, capital punishment for the crime of trying to rule other people. But if there were no leaders, how did anything get decided? The answer is consensus. Every significant decision, where to move camp, whether to follow a herd, how to respond to a conflict with another group, was talked through until everyone agreed. Not voted on, not decided by the strongest voice, talked through, sometimes for hours, until the group reached a position that everyone could accept. This sounds impossibly slow, and sometimes it was, but it had something no top-down hierarchy can produce: full commitment. When every person in the group has been part of making a decision, every person is invested in its success. There is no resentment, no silent resistance, no one waiting for the leader to fail. The decision belongs to everyone, so everyone makes it work. Now, this doesn't mean ancient humans had no one they listened to more than others. They had people whose opinions carried weight. An older woman who had survived 3 droughts and knew exactly which roots were safe to eat when everything else was gone. A man who had tracked animals across every terrain in a 100-mile radius for 40 years. A person who was trusted to mediate conflicts because they were known for fairness. But here is the crucial difference. Their influence was specific and non-transferable. The woman who knew about roots had no authority over hunting decisions. The tracker had no power over how conflicts were resolved. You could not inherit influence. You could not accumulate it across domains. You could not pass it to your children. Anthropologists call this achieved status versus ascribed status. You were listened to because of what you had actually demonstrated, not because of who your father was, not because of how much you owned, not because you had claimed the right to rule. The moment you stopped being useful, the moment you started using your influence to dominate rather than to serve, the mockery began. Then, about 10,000 years ago, agriculture arrived, and with it, for the first time in human history, something that could be accumulated. Stored grain, domesticated herds, land that produced food year after year. Suddenly, there was something worth owning, worth controlling, worth fighting over. And the people who controlled it could offer others protection and food in exchange for obedience. Within a few thousand years, the reverse dominance hierarchy that had kept humans equal for 290,000 years collapsed under the weight of the first thing humans ever had worth hoarding. The leader was born. It feels like the only way humans know how to organize. But for 290,000 years, your ancestors looked at anyone who tried to put themselves above the group and did something about it. The desire to not be ruled, the anger you feel at being treated as less than equal, is not a modern political idea. It is the oldest social instinct your species has.